Okay, I was actually in the process of creating a skill for brand voice and ensuring that the writing that it produces is something that actually sounds like you. And when I realized, I don't know if I've ever really covered what a skill is. So we're going to do a little behind the scenes and take you through as I build out the whole thing. So skills are basically files that we can provide a set of instructions to teach Claude how to do something. So it's very similar to a to-do list or a recipe. We'll see when we actually go to create the brand voice. You kind of have a specific set of instructions, and then whenever you trigger it, or if Claude automatically pulls that skill in, it'll go look at those instructions and kind of go through those items one by one to ensure that it's providing, the optimal output. And it's especially nice for things that you're going to do frequently and you want to have in a particular way. Writing is a great example. If you're going to write different articles, you'll probably want some sort of skill to ensure that the writing is consistent and the same from article to article. So here's an example of a skill. Weekly client update. It would say, all right, here's what I need to do. I need to call this week's number. I need to write it into our, brand style, and then format it as a clean summary. And you can use slash commands here. So I actually go over to Claude. I can hit slash and then do specific commands, or you can also trigger it by just going over here to skills and then selecting whichever skill you want to implement. Now there are a variety of skills that you can use that are automatically, I guess that like Anthropic or Claude provides. So if you come over here to skills, you can hit add and hit browse skills, and then you'll see all sorts of them. The most important one, I think it's automatically installed, but if not, you would want to install it, is this skill creator by Anthropic. So it's basically the skill that they've created to help you create better skills. You can see here they also have their own brand guidelines and all sorts of different ones. Let's create our first skill for brand voice. So what you'll do is go over to cowork, and then you will need to select a folder. But you probably want one folder for your clinic, basically, unless you just get a lot going on. Then you might have a folder for marketing or a folder for operations, all sorts of stuff. But we will use the skill creator skill that I had talked about to actually kick this off. And this whole process does take a while. Like Claude spends a decent amount of time thinking on it, so I'll kind of pause and stop as we go along. I've already created a prompt that I want to give it. So it just describes, hey, here's what the skill is. I want to create one for my brand voice, and then I like to give it a list of goals. So for every skill, because I'm usually sharing it, I always want some sort of setup where I can type in setup, and then it'll go and help build out what my brand voice is. So that's basically what this first part is talking about. And then the second part is, all right, well, I'm actually going to write. I want you to always use this skill so that we can ensure the writing is in my, and then the final piece that I like to add is some sort of feedback. So this might be 3 separate skills that's going to generate. And this feedback basically is a skill that clearly tells Claude, hey, if I don't like the writing style or I want to change something, here's what we need to do to change it successfully. Finally, if I have any particular resources, for example, I came across this article a while back, I could feed it into it, and I also tell it to do some of its own web research, and kind of the opposite, which is do some research on what are common ways that AI tends to write. For example, AI loves dashes and colons, I've noticed. So, and then here I just kind of put some other things that I'm thinking about. So yes, we want one consistent brand voice, but that might sound slightly different for long form articles versus, short form social media posts or things like that. And then I always like to include, hey, ask me more questions, just so I can ensure that, we're fully on the same page. So after you do all of that, clearly describe the skill you want to create. I'll put this because we might need to put it might need to create multiple skills here. You just hit go and it will start to work on it. Okay, so it's done some research. I thought for about a minute or so. I can see the particular articles it's gone through and researched. Now it has some questions for me. So it's asking, what kind of writing would this be for? I'll say, yeah, we will probably. But here it's asking me, does it need to kind of create guidelines for each of these individual things, which they're all different enough where I think we might want some. And I'm going to tell it that, yes, we want to be able to track specific brand guidelines that we want for these individual mediums, but then we also need an overarching brand voice for all items. Next. So it's asking basically if it notices any HIPAA stuff, should it, have guardrails where, hey, you can't say this because, like, medical disclaimer is a big one, that it tends to be a little overly cautious at times. So I'm gonna have it, you can recommend things, but a clinician should always be able to do what they'd like. So we're not gonna put strict guardrails, but it might say, hey, you reference this person's name, please make sure that you have, that they've given you permission to reference their name or something like that if you were doing the social media posts. Besides writing a new content in voice, do you want a voice check mode? Yeah, so it's just offering kind of an additional feature. I think, yeah, we should include it. That sounds like a nice thing. So a plugin is almost like a folder for different skills. It probably does make sense to have a brand voice plugin that consists of all the different skills inside of it. So I will put one bundle plugin is fine. And then it will continue going and thinking through all this stuff. I'll pause again until it's done. Okay, I wanted to stop again because it asked me another question. And this one was a good one. It's thinking about the architecture. So basically, it can store the file inside the skill, which is a little more challenging because Claude can't just go in and easily change its skill that frequently. Or it's asking, should it save it as a file that lives inside the project that we're using? So I will probably tell it to do it this way, assuming that most clinics are only going to have one folder that they're using. So I will hit that. It will continue to think about things and start to plan out how to build a skill. All right, so after a few minutes, it has finished up. It's pretty cool to watch because actually it runs through, it builds everything, and at one point it even created 8 different sub-agents that compares, all right, what would it look like if we didn't use the brand voice versus what's it look like if we do? And then here it provided have a review of all of these. So this is the output that it created, and then here you can test and say give it feedback as far as what you're looking for, and then it would go and update it. Here we can even see that it has created a mock clinic to check this out with. And we pop into the actual skill.nd file. We can see here's the description. So this is kind of what the AI always sees, and that's how it knows when to trigger a particular skill. And then we can see here it kind of talks about the different steps that it wants to do. So step 1 is you should always pull this brand voice profile markdown file. So that's exactly where it would be storing the clinic's particular brand voice, and then read it and start to implement it. I feel like it's a little easier to see when you look at the actual file folder. So if we pull this, we can see here it has the folder for all the different skills. We'll pull these through. There's 3 different skills. There's the setup, the updating or feedback piece that we talked about, and then the actual writer itself. Inside of each skill file, there will be a skill MD, which is written in Markdown. It talks about a description, and then it kind of gives the full setup. So you could come in here and manually update things as you wanted. I tend to find it easier just to tell Claude what you want changed, and it'll go and change it, and then you just keep checking. And then it also includes references. So here it talks about the healthcare guardrails, guidance, and the voice interview, as well as particular assets. So here the asset is, here's kind of what a template looks like for what we want for each clinic. So you'd have the clinic name, who they serve, overarching voice, particular vocab, things to avoid, all that. And sometimes it's easier, honestly, to see it from here because it's formatted. So you can go and read through those particular skill files, and then it gives you the plugin. So you would basically install this whole folder. So right here, there's a save plugin option that you can use. Hit save plugin. It will show that it has been applied. I can hit manage, and we can now see inside the plugin, there is the brand voice with the 3 different triggers. So now I can start to test this out. To task, I run the plugin brand voice setup. It should start to kind of go through and ask me questions. It's kind of an iteration thing where you go back and forth with the AI. So, you know, the first time I run through this, it's probably not going to be perfect. I'm going to have to go and tell it to update a particular skill, or there's something that I don't like, and it'll keep updating it. I reinstalled the plugin so I can test it all out again. And then once it looks good, then it's at a point where I can share with other people, sort of thing. And the part that I would be sharing is the plugin folder, which has the 3 skills inside of it. Again, a plugin, really just kind of a folder for different skills, and that allows a couple other things. And then it would go from there. So I do plan on making another video fully showing the brand voice. I will kind of run through the iterations. I'll save you guys the hassle of having to watch that. And then, yeah, you can check it out in the other video. Thanks.